Space nerds, what's up? Welcome. This, my friends, is the Galleon 100 SD keyboard. Sorry, the wire's a little short so you can't see the whole thing, but it is a keyboard with a Stream Deck built in, as you can see here on the side. A Stream Deck on a keyboard, not really necessary for most people, but for some, I think this is actually going to be a pretty convenient device, something that you could use for a lot of the things that maybe you use every so often, once or twice a week. Now, I thought I wouldn't really be into this thing with the Stream Deck on the right here. I thought it would be better on the left, but it's actually proven to be kind of useful. So I'm going to show you a couple of my use cases and how well this thing is overall. Now, just to be clear, Corsair did send this keyboard over to me to check out, and a thank you to them. But this isn't a paid ad or anything. I just thought I would give you guys a little bit of my own thoughts on it, since it's something that I'm going to kind of try and use and work into my own workflow. And we just did this whole rebuild. So perfect timing. And again, this is just my first impressions. I've only had this thing for about 30 hours or so I am going to be experimenting with it over the next couple months if you want to follow along. Now, the first thing that stands out to me about this thing is the weight. This thing is hefty. It's over 1 kilogram in weight. The frame is mostly metallic here. You got a lot of hardware in there as well, though, obviously with the dials and the buttons. It also has this pretty nice cushy wrist pad, which I don't usually use, but I'm going to stick with this one. It feels good. Overall, the quality of this thing is nice. It's got PBT keys and some really satisfying switches to click on. What I have realized, though, when using this is that I do prefer a low-profile keyboard, though. And even though the switches are nice, the keyboard is nice, I also prefer a white keyboard. So you're going to be a little limited on your choice getting something like this at $350. And that's the crux of this. You've got a $130 Stream Deck over here, and the keyboard itself is actually pretty nice, but you got to justify that price to yourself given the combination. Or you could just watch the rest of this video. But before we do get into the rest of this video, can I just complain a little bit about the dedicated co-pilot button on this keyboard? This pissed me off, okay? I was not happy about that, but you do get full software support to switch any key over to any other function, so it kind of takes care of itself. But the Stream Deck portion of this is where things get interesting. See, now while you're typing, you can easily go ahead and just insert some emojis wherever you want. These are the important things. This is what's getting taken care of. On a more serious note, you have plenty of profiles that you can download on the website to help you make more use of the Stream Deck. These profiles are actually pre-configured and include a bunch of icons that you can assign as you wish, even if the profiles don't have the specific controls you wanted. Ultimately, the point of these profiles is to take pre-built groups of icons, which you can download an icon pack separately if you'd like, and put them on specific keys and assign them to key bindings. So you can set all of that up yourself, but the profiles make it really easy and more plug and play. And for as new as this is, there's a decent amount of pre-made choice if you don't want to tinker. Quite a few games and some productivity apps already have existing profiles, icons, and plugins. But it's probably going to take some time to catch up to the traditional Stream Deck when it does come to profiles, even if the icon packs and plugins of those old Stream Decks does work with this still. But the ability to customize so much overall does make this a more generally useful addition to your everyday setup than the more game-focused peripherals like a HOTAS or an eye tracker. And it's kind of for the things that you forget key bindings of, but you still have to use often. So I'm not talking about your everyday kind of things that you're doing in the game that you like. I'm talking more about the stuff that you might need to do once or twice a week, and maybe you forgot the key bindings or don't want to pay attention to a whole bunch of different programs at once. And that's because, like I said, these are just normal key bindings. You can contextualize them with pictures or GIFs that move around. The dials up top obviously also give you plenty more customization and analog control over some things that you don't normally get on a keyboard. But at the end of the day, the actual work being done here is pretty simple. These are just key bindings assigned to other extra keys on your keyboard. Is that worth the extra money for you for a keyboard like this? Well, I think a lot of it comes from the ecosystem. Just like with Apple, Elgato has this really built-out ecosystem of Stream Decks, of microphones, of cameras, and software plugins, all kinds of stuff that does interconnect and work pretty well together. So if you do decide to go to Elgato's store for these, there are all kinds of things you can get, ranging from single icons for a specific thing you want to do to full-blown profile packs like I showed, some being free, some being paid, but most made by the community. Now, there's also plugins that you can get for these. The plugins themselves are actually going to give you the basic functionality to start from scratch, but for a specific program. So when you download a plugin, you can start to look for specific actions from that program you have and just drag and drop them into the spot that you need to use. One of my favorites is actually a small universal color picker, which lets me just grab color from anything on my computer and use it in the projects I'm editing in like Affinity or DaVinci Resolve. There's even a plugin that lets me control my camera, which makes it a lot easier than using my mouse all the time. There are plugins for programs I'm always using like Notion or even Google Chrome, Spotify. In general, it's just pretty easy to control the things on your computer using one of these. But sometimes you'll find that these are unsupported after a while by the devs, so it's kind of a bit hit and miss. You've got a good selection of things that you can tie into, but sometimes they just end up getting left for nothing. I actually did find plenty of options for Star Citizen though. I ended up landing on a plugin here from Jerix985, which allows you some pretty easy assigning of buttons on your Stream Deck. And then in addition to that, you can find some free Star Citizen icons to place whatever buttons you miss the most. Like for me, a helmet button. Again, you're gonna have to do a lot of the tweaking to make this work for you. The key bindings are still key bound and you have to go in and select which ones you want to put there and then assign the custom picture. But it will be extremely useful to some folks, I think, especially people who find themselves doing the same thing a lot of times in the game. The plugin's actually pretty nice too though. It lets you see what control is bound to anything else that you're using that's plugged into your computer, like a mouse or a joystick. This on its own makes it a pretty cool plugin, shout out to Jerix for that. But then also Elgato does let you control other Stream Decks from your Stream Deck. So technically, if you have another Stream Deck, you could switch the profiles and pages on that with your Galleon keyboard. Again, you don't need a Stream Deck to do that. You can download the Elgato Stream Deck software and assign all this to any keys you have on your keyboard. In fact, you can make up new F keys if you wanted to go past what buttons are on your keyboard. But this makes it really easy when you can assign pictures to them and when there's a dedicated spot for it. Also, the dials are pretty nice. This combination of the plugin plus those icons I mentioned were both free and pretty great at handling all the quick actions I had throughout the game, obviously with the ability to adjust them as I needed to. So far, when it comes to the actions I'm using this for in Star Citizen, it can be useful in opening things up, but I find myself not needing it as much because I know most of the key bindings. What I'm looking forward to is getting into deeper gameplay and mining and salvaging. In the times when you have to use those kind of obscure key bindings, you don't really remember them, but you don't want to look up the 2 key prompt that you need to do. And honestly, that's going to take time. That's going to take a lot of me experimenting with it while I'm playing the game. That's what I end up running into with any of these alternative controls. So if you're used to that, if you're open to that, this is pretty solid. Now, I've been slowly setting up this whole program over the last 24 hours in the midst of everything else going on and making it work in conjunction with my other Stream Deck. But honestly, I can tell I'm only hitting the tip of the iceberg here. I genuinely think that I might not be the best person for a Stream Deck. I get overwhelmed and I can't focus in on making sure it's functional how I want it. But the ability is there, and I think for what I can get it to work for, this will be extremely helpful. Again, it's just whether or not it's worth it for you. Just like with HOTAS or any other separate control scheme you might make for your PC, the majority of the work here is setting it up, making it work for you, making it fit your specific needs. But I can say that between the continuity amongst all these controls and their software, the way that Elgato makes everything work together, the macros, key bindings, and controls, plus the reliability of it being backed by a pretty big company, it seems like a fairly solid choice for adding some controls to your build. But I'm going to have more to say on this over the next couple of months. I just opened this up. I need to see how it actually works with the way that I play, if I can work it into my system long term, if the novelty wears off, maybe I enjoy it and I want to press some buttons and have some fun, but over time, if this starts gathering dust, is it really worth getting for $350? It is a cool device, it's genuinely useful, but it's not going to be for most people, I think. And I would advise holding off if you haven't actually tried alternative control methods yet. There's a lot to experiment with whether you're getting into productivity or sim pit building, and I don't think this would be the first choice. But it could be a good choice for those already in the Stream Deck ecosystem. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on this or ask some questions, feel free to come by the stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, or leave some comments down below and I'll try to answer your questions. This is, like I said, just my first impressions. I don't know where we're going to go from here, but if you do want to check one of these out yourself, you can also use the link in the video description and my special code TOMATO to get 5% off your own keyboard or any other desktop peripherals you want to get from Corsair. Thanks to them for sending this out. Thanks to you for watching. I hope you got some information from this. and I look forward to telling you more about whether this is worth it. I'll catch you in the next one.